Boots on the ground, day 3 at ACC Kickoff. Did they save the best team for last?
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's Kenton and myself here, day 3 ACC Kickoff. We do have boots on the ground. Kenton's been here all week. He's finally able to join him here for day 3 and NC State's portion of the media availability. We're just going to start off. We'll keep this relatively brief. General recap of everything we heard today from not just NC State, but the other teams as well. We witnessed our first, taste of the media circus following Bill Belichick. That was insane. We'll talk about that very briefly. But yeah, we did hear from Coach Doeren about a little over an hour ago, and also our 4 Wolfpack representatives. Kenton, just off the top, your initial thoughts.
What a stark contrast between the following for Bill Belichick and the way that Dave Doeren was kind of greeted by, media members or lack thereof, right?
Yes.
Like there's a line of people waiting on Bill Belichick as if he's the Pope. That's just really what happened here. You saw it, I saw it. And then the media room was never that packed, even when Clemson is going up there.
Correct.
A team that is a consensus top 5 team in the nation, the team that has the guy with the 3rd best Heisman odds, a team that has 2 players that are potential Defensive Player of the Year candidates, and very likely to end the drought of Clemson players not being ACC Defensive Players of the Year. You look at all those things and you say, man, these 2 teams could not be more opposite in terms of how they're covered. But then you look back to the results.
That's true.
And it's
undeniable.
It's kind of like, and this isn't me saying that NC State has had some magnificent results that are just like, hey, they're in a whole nother stratosphere. But head-to-head, it has been sheer dominance.
Yes.
Even with 4 quarterbacks in the season, even with ACC preseason player of the year hurt, even with, having to drag out true freshmen at quarterback and all that, I was a little baffled by it. And even Doeren noted it in his own Doeren way by saying, hey, is everybody up? This crowd feels a little sleepy because, again, the room, in comparison to the team that went directly before NC State and UNC, it felt very quiet, a little lifeless in there.
There was a very different vibe, and I think you could extend that even further. Like, just for example, today started off with Boston College. And, I mean, with all due respect, it's Boston College. Bill O'Brien's the head coach. He can be a walking soundbite at times, but you're not going to get a whole lot of the buzz. Clemson was right around lunchtime, and it was about the crowd you'd probably expect for Clemson. Yeah. Dabo Swinney's Dabo Swinney. There is no difference there. Cade Klubnik, to your point, which, hear me out, and this is a crazy point. So I said hear me out earlier. I think Cade Klubnik might win the Heisman. I got made fun of because they're like, what are you talking about? He's number 3 in current odds. I got all that. Maybe a story for another time. But Cade Klubnik, very well-spoken. The Clemson players, very well-spoken. They sound like a team that's been there and done that. They sound like a team that has been the class of the conference, and, well, they are. Spend a couple seconds here on Duke. I was actually very impressed with Manny Diaz. I thought he was very well-spoken, very powerful, like not the largest guy in terms of stature, but the man commands a room, and very respectful in the way that he does address other teams outside of his own, but he's very driven in his goals for his team and the atmosphere he wants to create. I was impressed by him. The Belichick experience. You want to just get into it? The Bill Belichick experience. This is Locked On Wolfpack. Don't get lost there. But the line, just for reference, there in the upstairs, there's a long line from essentially the main media room to the back couple rooms where they do all the photo shoots. They do a couple, radio hits, this, that, and the third. I had gotten up after the Duke run in the main room. I want you to go to the bathroom, okay? Longest line of photographers I've ever seen on an indoor hotel building here. Only for me to find at the bathroom door, there's Bill Belichick. He locked eyes with me. I said, whoop, I don't want none of that. Went in the bathroom. Just very odd vibes around Bill Belichick, as you might expect. But, Kenton, give me your thoughts on the way the media circus really got drummed up when it became time for Bill.
I mean, it was a circus. It was just that. For example, every other team, their coach went up, they went up together. Every other team. Not the Dirty Foot Club.
Nope.
The players went up first.
Shocking, I know.
And then Bill Belichick comes out from a separate room on the side, not with his players. Very, very odd. He's not the Pope. Nobody's going to assassinate him.
Rules for thee, but not for me.
It was, nobody wants to physically hurt or harm the guy. I don't, except for maybe whatever 25-year-old's girlfriend he took.
Hey now.
The reality is, it was just very strange.
It was
very strange. And, I asked the question of how do you kind of work with 18-year-olds? Because obviously in the NFL with Deflategate or whatever scandals were to come under a team that's coached by Bill Belichick, you're dealing with men with mortgages, with families that they're, providing for a high level. And it's not the exception, or it's not some of these guys are that. Everybody has that. In fact, it's the exception to not have those types of big kid bills and all that.
Yeah.
And I asked, with some of the off-season muck or mess surrounding this program, how do you keep 18 to 22-year-olds focused? And it just kind of, oh, well, players are developing, and it's exciting to see players developing, because in the NFL you don't get to see players developing this way, or they may have already got in bad habits. And it's like, that's great. That's a great answer for what's the most exciting part about college football, or how are you enjoying player development? But it wasn't what I asked at all. So again, it was very strange. It was very, very interesting and odd. I will say that first media day for the Belichick experience,
maybe the last.
I don't know. I don't think it was anything great. I don't think it was anything terrible. I think it was just very odd. It gave you a lot of meat on the bone to talk about, but not very impactful.
What I will say is Belichick seemed a little bit more lively than I think what you saw his days in New England.
True.
He was a little bit more receptive to some of the questions, although you can tell he's been around the block a time or two, very PR trained, completely dodged the crux of Kenton's actual question, which is how do you keep your players focused in an off season of whatever you want to call it over there in Chapel Hill. So, yeah, I mean, it was pretty much your typical Belichick. The circus certainly ensued, and that kind of leads us into this discussion about NC State, because obviously Coach Doeren and our players, we followed Belichick in the main room, and the moment that UNC was done, you would have thought the room was deflated. How about that for a pun? The room was a little bit deflated after Belichick had left. In comes Coach Doeren and our 4 representatives, actually only 3, because Cleveland, for some reason, didn't make it onto this stage. He was in the breakout room instead. But Coach Doeren, kind of the same breath as Coach Belichick. You know what you're going to get. He's relatively reserved in what he's going to give you. It kind of is what it is with Coach Doeren. He's very stoic at times. What are your thoughts on Coach Doeren now? Another year gone, year 13, his presence at Media Day.
I think Doeren was a lot less PR than normal.
Sure.
I think he gave a lot of edge and a lot of talking about this team's pissed off. They were disappointed from last year. He used the phrase, this team felt like they left a ton of meat on the bone from last year. Well, damn it, I want some hungry wolves ready to eat.
That's right.
If you left the meat on the bone is still, guess what? New bone. Don't leave no meat on this one. That's what's going on here. And he talked about the different things that developed an edge. And I'll be very honest, I didn't get to ask Doeren a question because we ran out of time here. But I wanted to ask, was it a moment that added even more to that chip on your shoulder that, your rival school is having their head coach treated like the Pope, and you're being treated like yesterday's liver mush? Like, it's there, but do you want it? You don't want liver mush. I've never heard anybody say, give me that liver mush. So I would assume that that's just another thing that adds to the list of like, hey, this is why this team has edge. Another phrase that he used was, we have something to prove.
Yeah.
The coordinators have something to prove. I have something to prove. And to me, that's the most impressive thing Doeren could have said. Because he could have said, and he did talk about how, he owns a lot of parts of the record book in terms of NC State coaching, but he spent more time talking about there's something to prove, there's meat on the bone, than he did kind of sitting back, kicking his feet up, saying, hey, I did the thing. I don't know what else you want from me.
Something else I found interesting is early in his opening remarks, he said that this team feels potentially more coachable than any team that he's had in a long time. And I also took note that he said the defense in particular, it's going to be extremely competitive in fall camp. And whether you read that as a negative or a positive, it does seem like they've kind of turned a leaf from how last year had unfortunately ended. It seems like there's a new energy. They do feel like there's a lot on the table to prove. they feel, slighted both by their own performance and by the way they've gotten treated in the offseason. Like, for example, CJ had a couple questions about, does he feel like he's being looked over, or, do you feel like you're being forgotten about? Of course, he says, I don't worry about any of that, as he shouldn't. But there is kind of this air about NC State as we enter the 2025 season that they are kind of just there. Historically, they have kind of just been there, but it seems like there's a little bit more of a hunger this year to prove otherwise. They feel like maybe they can run the table in the ACC. Maybe they can win 8+ games and get back to, the Doeren level, even when the expectations are relatively low as you enter this season. So thought that was interesting. Like you said, Coach Doeren, maybe a little bit lively, maybe more of the same. Coach Doeren is Coach Doeren at the end of the day. Now let's talk about the players. And I thought CJ Bailey in particular, he came across extremely polished. That's a confident quarterback. Let me tell you, he is so confident in not just the coaching staff that he was able to retain, like Kurt Roper. He's over the moon about Kurt Roper, very excited about another offseason of growth with him. But his wide receiving room, he says he's ready to put up some points. This offense is going to look a lot different than it did last year in 24. I'll tell you some other things he said about some wide receivers in just a second. But Kenton, your overall thoughts on CJ Bailey today?
CJ Bailey is CJ Bailey. He is QB1. Another year of going through all the things, he looks like it. He looks off. Physically bigger, obviously. Weight room, eating right. You get that. He looked more confident and poised when stepping to the mic. 9 times out of 10 last year, we were hearing from him directly post-game where he's very excited and the jitters are kind of going. But other than that, at times he sounded a little bit unsure of himself. This year, he says, I'm happy to be a leader. I'm happy to do things kind of my way, knowing that these guys are my group of guys in terms of the skill position and whatnot. That's super exciting. Talking about getting to know the linemen, say, hey, these are my linemen.
That's right.
I'm their quarterback. This is how this thing is going to work out. It's very exciting there. I look at this and I say, CJ Bailey looks like a guy that's settling in. And that's what you want more than anything else. Because when guys are comfortable, that's when they do some of their best work. When you're uncomfortable, it can come from a modicum or a wide range of things, but none of them are generally good, right? If you're uncomfortable, it's because you're being thrown into a new thing and you have to learn what it is. He's not there anymore, or things have changed and you're not able to adjust to change. He's not there. There hasn't been a ton of change that he's not comfortable with. Or the last thing here, you are not meant for whatever you are being pushed into. And so you can never get comfortable in a place you're not meant to be. You cannot fit in that box. And I don't think CJ Bailey falls into any of those categories. So naturally, he looked comfortable. He looked relaxed. He looked like he was ready to do his job and be great at it. And he spoke like, hey, I belong here. This team belongs here. We're ready to go out there and put up some points and do what we got to do.
There is a bit of an aura that not just he trusts his teammates, but his teammates trust him. And he understands the task at hand to be the leader, to be QB1. There is no question about who's taking the bulk of the snaps, who needs to be the loudest in the huddle and guide guys when maybe things aren't going as well as you hope they would or you plan for them to be. He knows that he's going to be the guy to weather any storm, not just with the offense, but both sides of the ball. Like, this is unequivocally his team. Offense, defense, special teams, coaching staff. Everyone knows who the guy has to be, and it is CJ Bailey. A couple of the funnier questions I heard asked him in the breakout room. Somebody asked him, do you think you're the 15th best quarterback in the ACC? He said, man, you know what I think. That's what I want from my QB1. I want that chip on his shoulder. I want that kind of lack of respect from the large part of the national media. He knows what he's capable of. We know. The two of us know. Wolfpack Nation knows. Very exciting to see the confidence that you can visibly tell on his face, in his body, his prep work. He's about ready to go. A couple more things that I think a lot of y'all will find very interesting. For the Duke Scott truthers out there, CJ Bailey said he's been over the moon impressed with Duke Scott this offseason. He said you're going to like what you see because you haven't seen much of him, if not anything really, up to this point. He said be on the lookout for Duke Scott this year. I also asked him specifically if you could only pick one wide receiver who took the largest steps in the offseason. Kenton, who do you think he said it was?
I'm going to assume it's Noah Rodgers.
It was not Noah Rodgers. It's actually your man, Keenan Jackson. CJ Bailey said Keenan Jackson has been the most impressive wide receiver in terms of improvement from last year to this year. If you're a Keenan Jackson guy, you might be tuned in very quickly to game 1 against ECU. Let's move on to Justin Jolie. He had it on, did he not?
yeah.
I tweeted this morning. Something just told me he was going to have something crazy on when he stepped through the doors. He did. He had the all red fit on. One thing I will tell you, I asked him, "You're wearing all red. Are you going to convince Coach Doeren to let y'all wear all red during the season?" What he told me was, if he gets a vote toward the end of the year when the seniors get to choose, all red is his vote. We'll see if Doeren will veto that. Justin Joly, he's got that personality that you can feel in every corner of the room. And I think, obviously he knows what people have said about him being a top tight end in the country, which is funny because he was actually introduced as a wide receiver, immediately took offense to that, said, no, I'm a tight end. The confidence on Justin Joly, I think, is another thing. In conjunction with CJ Bailey and a lot of the offensive staff that you retain, that's a guy that's going to benefit from confidence and retention.
Absolutely. You want to talk about confidence? You correcting the person at the podium that's picking people and asking questions and all that when he calls you the wrong position. But also, he seemed very self-assured.
Yes.
Everything with him was internal. I didn't hear him talk about the outside once, even though he was asked very direct questions, including by myself, about external things, about external perception of him, about those things. He stayed the course in terms of, we don't worry about that. I don't worry about that. I do what I do. I do the best at it. And there's that. That is a young man that I want to see do amazing. That is a young man that I just know, like, hey, this season we're going to see more of what we saw last year, because how many tight ends can spearhead a power 4 passing attempt?
Few.
And yet he was that last year. He was a guy that we're screaming to get the ball more. He was a guy that, despite us protesting and begging and pleading for him to get the ball more, he was still the leading receiver.
He was.
So, objectively speaking, he is confident. He is self-assured. He is ready. I'm ready to see him do great things.
I'll tell you something else. The guys that are able to lead an offense from a tight end position, what do they normally do, Kenton? They're normally in the Mackey Award conversation at the end of the year.
Yes.
That's our goal for Justin Joly. I'm sure it's one of his as well.
Yep.
If he's going to be one of the top tight ends in the country, you fully expect that he will make that jump even further this year, lead this offense, lead this team, and be a force to be reckoned with on the offensive side of the ball. That looks like one of the top tight ends in the country in every way, shape, and form. Defensively, Brandon Cleveland was here. Caden Fordham was here. Spoke a little bit with Caden Fordham about his recovery process. He also told the media here that he has been fully cleared. That's a question that we've had for a couple weeks now, especially looking at that linebacking room. Caden Fordham being fully cleared to go. Fall week begins this next coming week. How big is that to get your leader on the defensive side back?
Boy, they got them new ACLs now.
I guess so. They rub that stick of butter on it nowadays. They're good to go.
They used to put those things back together with cat guts and cadavers, and yet he's cleared to go after all this. But, Caden is a guy. He was a rock in this defense. That was a position we did not have the depth to get hurt at. And even with some key additions, even with some guys getting bigger, stronger, faster in our weight program and all that, I still think linebacker's a spot that we need to have Caden step up and play a major role. I might not say he needs to be the alpha in that room in terms of performance, but he needs to play a major role, because that is a young group. It is a group that behind your starters, you don't see a ton of experience, a ton of snaps played. So Caden has to be a guy that shows up and shows out in a major way.
Also spoke a lot about I guess the recurring theme this year, or this today, is confidence. There's a lot of confidence in his teammates that they're going to have his back no matter what, and him having to take a different form of leadership last year, not on the field but on the sideline. He has a lot of new confidence in his ability to be a leader on that defensive side of the ball, and I think the Wolfpack defense will. Well, we know we surely missed him last year, but being able to see him ready to go from week one again this year, that's you can't emphasize how big a boost that is, especially when you return a guy like Sean Brown alongside him. So Caden Fordham is good to go. That's a massive development, very big bonus, again, as they do begin fall camp next week. And then lastly, Brandon Cleveland. I love that guy. So articulate, so well-spoken. He has just a positive energy around him. He seems like he has a good day every single day. It doesn't matter win or lose, rain or shine, he's going to have a good day.
Yes.
And having a guy like that, you can never replace a Devin Van on the defensive line. But if you're looking for someone to essentially emulate the quarterback pressure that we lacked last year, Brandon Cleveland's going to be that guy, again, from day one. Brandon Cleveland, I kind of asked him who he models his game after, and it was a familiar face, Aleem McNeil. He said he's been able to work with Aleem these last couple of years. He's learned a lot from him, and he wants to have the type of season that Aleem had the year that he got drafted to your Detroit Lions. So I think Brandon Cleveland's lining up for a massive year in a four-man front as well. Something we've kind of missed, that extra pressure on the quarterback, get those sack numbers back up. I think Brandon Cleveland might just go off.
Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to see Brandon Cleveland all up and down that line. Get ready to see him in multiple different spots in terms of the techniques he's going to be playing, because the 3-3-5 is a little bit restrictive. That's just the honest truth in terms of defensive linemen. It kind of typecasts you into one role or another, as opposed to a four-man or a hybrid front, which is what he'll be playing in this year. It'll free him up. It'll give him less double teams. It'll give him the ability to make more plays in the passing game and in the running game as well, because, again, when you are responsible for controlling one gap, it gives you more penetrative abilities than if you are two gapping, or you're responsible for this gap front side, this gap backside, and that type of deal. So Brandon Cleveland, excited about him, geeked up about him. He's geeked up about the season. He said, I love Coach Elliott.
You did.
I love Coach Elliott. I love his scheme, and he loves me. And I said, you know what? Damn it, I like it. That's what I love to see.
And it's not just Brandon Cleveland that I've heard that from. It's been multiple guys have raved about how much they really like having DJ Elliott here, and his former NFL experience is something that he implements in his training with his players now at NC State. He said they watch a lot of NFL film, and there's so much they can gather, not just in their own game, but potentially using, in the future if they make it to that level. So I think there is a lot of valuable experience that DJ Elliott has that he's already bestowing upon his new defensive group here, because it is a very new group, both defensive line, linebacking core, and in that secondary. It's going to look a lot different than it has the last couple of years with Tony Gibson. But whether it's unsure or a proven product, we cannot wait to see what they actually do look like once the season rolls around. So any final thoughts from you, Kenton? Day 3, actually, ACC Kickoff as a whole is now in the books. What do you think?
I'm excited about this season for the Pack. I really and truly am. And this team seems different. This team sounded different this year. And obviously it's media day. So take it with a grain of salt.
Sure.
Take it with a grain of salt, because everybody, it's easy to say the right things. It's harder when the action part comes up. But this team is saying things that I think, if I could grade it, I'd say a solid A. Solid A. Everything I heard was exactly what I wanted to hear. I didn't hear overconfidence and cockiness. There were some teams and some players, not going to say any names, Castellanos, that, I was just like, oh, boy, all right. But there was a confidence, and there was not a kind of weird vibe or anything off of this team. There was just a confidence there, and I really liked it.
I think it's easy to put on a front and act like you're not bothered, act like, football season's coming. We're very excited about that. But it's another thing to exude that confidence and exude how ready that they truly feel like they are to take on the 2025 season. They know that last year was a disappointment. They know that it finished in a maybe even more disappointing fashion in losing to ECU. They're ready for ECU. I would bet you today is Thursday. They'd play them tonight if they could. They would play them 2 hours from the time we're recording. They play them in the hotel lobby. The hotel lobby. Shout out Quavo. They're ready to go. And I think we all get that football itch around this time of the summer, but being here, seeing our guys and hearing their confidence level, they're ready to go. And I fully have that itch. And it ain't the sunburn that's on my back. Truth be told, I mean, it is itchy, but I'm ready to go. Kenton's ready to go. The Wolfpack football team is ready to go. That will do it for us here on Thursday in our ACC Kickoff here. Year 3 in the books. Still blessed that we're able to do this each and every year. It's one of the best days of the summer. Thank you all for watching, commenting, liking, interacting with us. We saw a couple screenshots, y'all taking pictures of us. Body by Thunder, by the way, Mike Jones. No, thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for watching. Go Pack.
Go Pack.